where were you 12 years ago? What were you doing?
School, yeah.
High school. I've been working my ass off and you're at school. Terrific. You questioned me why I wasn't here? I've been all over the world working my ass off and you've done nothing. I'm underwriting you. Do you know that?
The world of Hollywood has long been fascinated by the lives of its legendary figures, and few actors are commanded as much respect, admiration.
I had no idea that this was such a big deal. When Howard, that's Mr. Stringer, called me and said, the AFI.
An intrigue as Sean Connery, renowned for his commanding presence, velvety voice, and magnetic charm, Connery left an indelible mark on cinema that continues to resonate decades after his most iconic performances. From his early days in Scotland to the global spotlight of Hollywood, his career was filled with triumphs, accolades, and stories that the public knew, and many that remained carefully hidden. 3 years after his passing, new revelations have begun to surface, shedding light on the darker, lesser-known aspect of Connery's personal life, his complex personality, and the challenges he faced behind the scenes of his illustrious career. Born in Edinburgh in 1930, Connery's rise from a working-class upbringing to international stardom was anything but conventional. Before he became the suave secret agent James Bond, Connery worked a series of blue-collar jobs, ranging from lifeguard to truck driver, honing his physical presence and developing the discipline that would later serve him on screen. His early experiences instilled a work ethic and resilience that defined much of his later life. Audiences would come to see a confident, sometimes larger-than-life figure on the silver screen. But those who knew him personally often spoke of a man who carried private struggles beneath his charismatic exterior. Connery's portrayal of James Bond in the 1960s and 1970s forever changed the landscape of spy films. He brought sophistication, wit, and physicality to a role that would define the genre. Yet behind the scenes, Connery was known to be intensely private, protective of his personal life, and occasionally combative with the pressures of Hollywood fame. While fans saw a man effortlessly commanding attention on screen, those closest to him were aware of a personality that could be complex, guarded, and at times troubled that as his career progressed beyond Bond. Connery sought to diversify his roles, taking on projects that allowed him to explore different facets of acting. He won an Academy Award for his performance in The Untouchables, demonstrating his ability to move beyond the image of the debonair secret agent. Yet even as he achieved professional recognition, whispers of conflicts, personal struggles, and intense relationships persisted. These stories, often shielded from public view, painted a picture of a man navigating the pressures of fame, personal ambition, and private demons. 3 years after his death, a number of these accounts have begun to surface in memoirs, interviews, and investigative retrospectives. Friends, colleagues, and insiders have shared insights into Connery's temperament, his personal habits, and his interactions with Hollywood elites. While he was widely celebrated for his charm and generosity, sources reveal that he could also be intensely private, sometimes temperamental, and fiercely protective of those he loved. These revelations provide a more nuanced understanding of a man who often appeared larger than life, yet remained deeply human in his vulnerabilities and complexities. Connery's personal relationships also attracted attention both during and after his life. Married to Micheline Roqueroun for decades, and with a son from an earlier marriage, Connery's family life was often kept out of the public eye. Reports suggest that he was a devoted father and husband in private, yet his fame and demanding career sometimes created tension and challenges that he managed quietly. Friends and family members have shared stories of his kindness, humor, and loyalty, balancing out accounts of the difficulties and pressures that accompanied his celebrity status. The darker elements of Connery's life, which only now are coming to light, include moments of intense professional friction, personal regrets, and the toll that decades of fame took on his health and psyche. These stories, while sometimes uncomfortable, are important in understanding the full scope of the man behind the icon. They show that even individuals revered worldwide for their talent and persona are not immune to human struggles, and that the facade of glamour often masks complex inner realities. His legacy, however, is undeniable. Connery's contributions to film, his pioneering role as James Bond, and his commanding performances across genres have left an indelible mark on cinematic history. Yet the newly emerging accounts of his personal challenges remind audiences that celebrity often comes at a cost, and that the stories behind the screen are frequently more intricate than those seen in public. These revelations do not diminish his accomplishments. Rather, they humanize him, showing that behind the icon was a man shaped by experience, ambition, and the pressures of extraordinary success. For fans, historians, and cinema enthusiasts, the continued uncovering of Sean Connery's life provides both fascination and perspective. His public persona as a confident, elegant, and charming figure is now complemented by a more complete understanding of his private struggles, his temperaments, and the decisions that influence both his career and personal life. It's a reminder that the legends we admire are multifaceted individuals, whose true stories are often revealed only with the passage of time. Even now, years after his passing, Connery's influence permeates modern cinema. Actors continue to cite him as an inspiration, filmmakers draw from his charisma and style, and audiences remain captivated by the characters he brought to life. Yet the emerging accounts of his private life add depth to that legacy, illustrating that the line between public admiration and private complexity is often far thinner than fans imagine. That in exploring these posthumous revelations, we gain not only a deeper appreciation for Sean Connery's talent, but also a more empathetic understanding of the pressures and challenges inherent in a life spent in the global spotlight. The story of his dark secrets is a reminder that fame and acclaim, while glamorous, often coexist with personal trials, unspoken tensions, and difficult decisions, elements that shaped Connery into both the icon we celebrated and the man who navigated a complicated, private life away from the camera's point 3 years after his death. Sean Connery's story is finally being told in full, blending the triumphs of cinematic genius with the nuanced, sometimes shadowed realities of his personal journey. It is a portrait of a man who captivated the world, yet whose private struggles and hidden facets now add depth and humanity to the legend, proving that even the most celebrated lives hold untold chapters waiting to emerge. Even as the world continues to celebrate Sean Connery for his legendary film career, these newly revealed aspects of his life paint a far more intricate picture than the public previously knew. For decades, Connery captivated audiences with his commanding presence, sophisticated charm, and effortless charisma, leaving an enduring imprint on Hollywood and global culture. Yet behind the glitz and glamour, his private life reveals a man navigating personal struggles, professional pressures, and the sometimes isolating realities of fame, a side of Connery that only now is being fully explored. Colleagues and insiders recount moments where Connery's intensity and perfectionism could clash with the fast-paced, often unpredictable world of film production. While he was admired for his dedication to craft and his ability to elevate any project he touched, there were times when his expectations and uncompromising standards caused tension on set. These stories reveal a man committed to excellence, unwilling to compromise his vision or professionalism, even if it meant confronting conflict. They also underscore the hidden pressures that accompany a life spent in constant public view. Beyond the professional sphere, his personal relationships were complex and deeply private. His marriage to Micheline Roqueroun, lasting several decades, is described by those close to him as a partnership marked by loyalty, mutual respect, and shared discretion. However, balancing family life with a high-profile career was not always easy. Friends suggest that Connery struggled at times with maintaining privacy, managing public scrutiny, and protecting the people he loved from the intense media attention that followed his every move. These dynamics reveal a side of Connery that contrasted sharply with his polished public persona, someone who valued intimacy and personal boundaries in a world that often offered little of either. In addition to these personal challenges, new revelations highlight Connery's approach to wealth, fame, and legacy. While many celebrities of his era were eager to embrace publicity, Connery was selective, choosing when and how to engage with the public. He maintained a strong sense of self-discipline, often prioritizing personal fulfillment and professional integrity over media exposure. This careful curation of public image, however, sometimes masked the emotional and psychological complexities he navigated privately. The emergence of these dark and previously hidden facets of Connery's life also sheds light on the toll that decades of fame can exact on anyone. Insiders note that while he often displayed humor, charm, and confidence, there were periods marked by stress, personal reflection, and even moments of regret. These accounts humanize a figure who might otherwise be seen only through the lens of cinematic legend, reminding audiences that even icons contend with the everyday challenges of emotion, mortality, and personal responsibility. Perhaps one of the most revealing aspects of these posthumous stories is how they contextualize Connery's career choices. His willingness to step beyond the role of James Bond and pursue diverse characters demonstrates a desire for artistic growth and personal expression. Yet these choices were not without struggle. Taking risks in Hollywood often invited criticism, financial uncertainty, or friction with studios. The tension between public expectation and personal ambition was a recurring theme throughout his life, and understanding this struggle adds depth to the admiration fans feel for his work. Connery's story also emphasizes the paradox of fame. The more legendary his public persona became, the more private his personal life remained. While the world celebrated his successes, few were aware of the intricacies, anxieties, and inner conflicts that accompanied his rise and sustained career. These emerging narratives reveal a man who could embody confidence and charm on screen while simultaneously grappling with challenges, insecurities, and the weight of living under global scrutiny for audiences. These revelations offer more balanced and nuanced appreciation of Connery, not just as James Bond or an award-winning actor, but as a human being whose life encompassed both brilliance and complexity. They illuminate the ways in which personal resilience, professional ambition, and human vulnerability coexist, painting a portrait of a man who navigated extraordinary circumstances with courage, intelligence, and a measure of private struggle. Ultimately, the story of Sean Connery 3 years after his passing is a reminder that even legends are multifaceted. His life illustrates the interplay between public adulation and private complexity, between cinematic triumph and personal trials. These revelations enrich the understanding of a man who continues to inspire, entertain, and captivate audiences worldwide, offering a legacy that extends beyond film into the realm of human experience itself. The posthumous uncovering of Connery's dark secrets is not meant to diminish his achievements, but rather to provide a fuller, more authentic picture of the person behind the legend. It is a testament to the complexity of fame, the resilience required to maintain personal integrity, and the humanity that exists even in those whose names and faces become immortalized on the global stage. Through this lens, Sean Connery emerges as both an icon and a man, a figure whose life, struggles, and triumphs continue to captivate, intrigue, and teach us about the costs and rewards of extraordinary success. As time passes and more reflections emerge about the life of Sean Connery, historians and fans alike continue piecing together the story behind the legendary figure who dominated cinema for decades. For many, Connery will forever remain the original face of James Bond, the role he first portrayed in the groundbreaking film Dr. No. That performance didn't just launch a franchise, it transformed Connery into one of the most recognizable stars in the world. Yet as the years since his passing unfold, discussions about his life increasingly reveal a far more layered and complicated individual behind the cinematic legend. Fame arrived quickly and intensely for Connery in the early 1960s. Almost overnight, he went from a relatively unknown actor to an international superstar. With the success of films like Goldfinger and From Russia with Love, his image as a confident secret agent became deeply embedded in popular culture. However, this sudden fame also created pressures that few people around him could fully understand. Studios, journalists, and fans all had expectations about who Sean Connery should be, and those expectations sometimes clashed with his own personal identity and ambitions as an actor. Behind the scenes, Connery was known to be fiercely independent. While producers hoped he would continue playing Bond indefinitely, he often expressed frustration with being typecast. He wanted to explore other roles, experiment with different genres, and prove that his abilities extended beyond the suave spy persona that had made him famous. This tension between studio expectations and personal ambition became a recurring theme in his career. It also contributed to some of the conflicts and disagreements that later became part of Hollywood lore. Yet Connery's determination to break free from a Bond image ultimately helped shape a remarkable second phase of his career. Films like The Name of the Rose and The Untouchables demonstrated his range as a performer. In the latter, his portrayal of the tough Irish cop Jim Malone earned him an Academy Award, proving that the actor once known primarily for action roles could also deliver powerful dramatic performances. These achievements reinforce his reputation as one of the most versatile actors of his generation. However, the more personal stories now emerging suggest that success often came with emotional complexity. Friends and collaborators have described Connery as a man who valued privacy above almost everything else. While he enjoyed the craft of acting, he was less enthusiastic about the celebrity culture surrounding it. He preferred spending time away from the spotlight, focusing on family life and personal interests rather than public appearances or media attention. This reserved nature sometimes led to misunderstandings with journalists and fans who expected the same charm off-screen that he displayed in films. Connery could be blunt, even confrontational when dealing with intrusive questions or rumors about his private life. Yet those who knew him well often described a very different person behind closed doors, someone who possessed a dry sense of humor, deep loyalty to friends, and a surprising warmth that rarely appeared in interviews. As discussions about his life continue years after his passing, these contrasts have become an important part of understanding the real Sean Connery. The so-called dark secrets often mentioned in headlines are less about shocking revelations and more about the complicated reality of a man navigating immense fame while trying to maintain his independence and personal identity. Like many public figures, Connery lived a life shaped by both extraordinary achievement and private struggles. His later years were marked by a gradual retreat from the film industry. After decades of intense work, he chose to step away from acting and focus on a quieter lifestyle. Living largely out of the spotlight, he spent time with his family and reflected on a career that had taken him from the streets of Edinburgh to the heights of global stardom. Even in retirement, however, his influence on cinema remained undeniable. Actors who followed in the role of James Bond often acknowledged Connery's impact on the character and the franchise. His blend of charisma, danger, humor, and intelligence created the template that future portrayals would build upon. In many ways, every Bond film made since then still carries echoes of the performance he first introduced in the early 1960s. Today, as audiences revisit his films and reflect on his legacy, the emerging stories about Sean Connery reveal something deeper than simple celebrity gossip. They highlight the human side of a global icon, a man who achieved extraordinary success but also faced the same emotional complexities, ambitions, and personal challenges that define any life lived in the public eye. 3 years after his death, the conversation about Sean Connery continues to evolve. Rather than diminishing his achievements, these reflections add depth to his story, reminding audiences that legends are rarely as simple as they appear. Behind the unforgettable characters, the awards, and the cinematic milestones stood a person shaped by experience, determination, and the complicated realities of fame. And in that sense, the true story of Sean Connery remains as fascinating as any role he ever played on screen. As years pass after the death of Sean Connery, the public fascination with his life has only grown stronger. For decades, he was seen as the embodiment of charisma and strength on the silver screen, especially through his portrayal of James Bond. Yet the more historians, journalists, and former colleagues revisit his life, the more it becomes clear that Connery's story was far more complex than the confident characters he portrayed in films. Behind the image of the fearless secret agent stood a man shaped by ambition, personal discipline, and a determination to escape the limitations that fame sometimes placed upon him. Connery's journey from the working-class neighborhoods of Edinburgh to global stardom remains one of the most remarkable success stories in Hollywood history. Long before audiences knew his name, he struggled through difficult jobs and uncertain opportunities, determined to find a place in the entertainment world. Those early years of hardship helped forge a resilience and self-confidence that later defined his performances. Even when he became one of the highest-paid actors in the world, Connery never forgot the discipline and persistence that had brought him there, yet fame also brought a set of challenges that few people around him fully understood. As the success of the early Bond films exploded internationally, Connery found himself trapped between admiration and expectation. Producers wanted him to remain the face of the franchise indefinitely, while audiences around the world began to associate him almost exclusively with the role. For a performer who valued artistic growth, this situation could feel restrictive. Connery often expressed frustration about being defined by a single character,